I'm Damian Lillard, and this is the Kevin Burke Project.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is episode 60 of the Kevin Burke Project. Let me hop right in. 4 topics. Let me first start off with Draymond Green being a part of the TNT telecast for the Western Conference Finals on site with the rest of the crew. Let me start by saying I think Draymond Green is very, very, very good at being an analyst. When he's up there with Shaq, Kenny, Chuck, and Ernie, I forget Shaq is even there. I know Kenny is a bit of a punching bag, but I think Kenny brings the most insight in terms of analysis than anybody else up there on set. Draymond, I think, is right there with Kenny. So Chuck is the most entertaining guy up there, obviously. Shaq's biggest contribution, I feel, to the show is when he's egging on Chuck. When Chuck is talking about the beaches in Galveston, when Chuck is talking about the people in San Antonio, what he thinks they look like and what he thinks they eat. When Shaq is egging Chuck on, I think that's Shaq's biggest contribution to the show. And I bring up all that because when Draymond is on a roll and he's talking and he's breaking it down, it's like, wow, it's clear he is head and shoulders better than Shaq in analysis. He's probably the best one up there in breaking down the game and providing analysis. He's right there with Kenny. I think it's great. Now, we got to remember that this is not new. He signed a contract with TNT a few years ago, so I'm not sure why he's a part of the set on site this year versus previous years, but he signed with TNT as an active player a couple of years ago. Now, what I'll say about Draymond, and despite all of his greatness being an analyst live with the crew, I will say that it is a little bit odd that he's afforded this platform as a current player. Here's what I mean by that. He is Draymond Green. A lot of people like him. More people hate him. That's current players as well. And he, of course, shares those same sentiments. He probably hates a lot of players. And that's no more evident to me than when he's talking about players like Rudy Gobert. He clearly doesn't like Rudy Gobert. We've known this for a while. It's my opinion. He doesn't like Rudy. So when he's up there breaking down the game and telling you what he sees versus what he doesn't see, I think he's taking personal shots at these guys disguised as analysis. That's the only problem I have with Draymond, because he's a current player and he's afforded this platform to do that. Now, if he were to go on the Draymond Green podcast, the Draymond Green Show podcast, and take these shots, these personal shots that I think they are sometimes, that's fine. That's well within his rights because that's his podcast. But for him to do it on Inside the NBA alongside those other guys, I think once he goes back next year to playing, I think some of these guys will remember some of this stuff. And not saying he has anything to worry about from an on-court standpoint with some of those guys, but it's just, I'll say a little bit, if I'm some of the other guys on the receiving end of the shots that Draymond is sending, I'm not sure how I feel about it, especially given the fact that he's up there laughing with everybody else, all the other analysts as well too. So again, he is phenomenal at breaking down basketball. Phenomenal. It's just that he's a current player, so it makes this a little bit odd. All right, let me pivot to JJ Redick. JJ's a bit of a wild card. He's when he retired and burst onto the media scene, I guess first with his podcast and then eventually onto like ESPN, I thought, wow, this guy he's a bit of a lightning rod. He's different. He's refreshing, right? He's insightful. He's measured. He's thought provoking. He's all of those things, but he is also probably the most condescending human who has ever walked planet Earth. Probably. I mean, think he plays the "you haven't played this game, so you don't know what you're talking about" card too much. I've seen him do that a couple of times with prominent national sports analysts who haven't played the game. I think this is 2024 now. That's old. I mean, that's done. I mean, I don't think. Yeah, obviously, guys who play the game can break it down more than guys who haven't, but that doesn't mean that guys who haven't played the game are novices or they don't know the game. I'm not saying he's saying that, but he strongly implies that with some of his condescending tone. I bring up JJ Redick because I feel that him launching this Mind the Game podcast with LeBron is very, very interesting. First of all, it is a very good podcast. If you are a basketball junkie like myself, haven't checked it out, I would say do that. I'm not sure why I'm trying to sell this. They don't need me to sell their podcast for them. One of my questions is that of all the people LeBron could have done a podcast with, I'm just personally curious why JJ Redick. This was the year 21 for LeBron. Why did he find JJ Redick to be that one person he's willing to sit down and have a deep dive basketball podcast conversation with? I would love to have been a part of or listen in on the negotiation conversations that led to Mind the Game becoming a thing. That's neither here nor there. I'm just curious why LeBron chose, why JJ fits the bill for the guy that LeBron would have sat. Not saying JJ isn't qualified. He clearly is. I'm just curious how that came to pass. Even on that podcast, JJ is sometimes condescending with LeBron too and breaking down basketball. He's like almost sarcastic with him. I just find that odd. That's just his personality, I guess. It is what it is. I bring up JJ because his name is being mentioned now with regard to coaching in the NBA, and his media career, namely this podcast with LeBron, is his interview. These episodes are, I believe, his coaching interviews. Surely the teams that are interested in him are bringing him in to actually sit down and have a formal interview, but this is a brilliant play by JJ. I think he's smart enough to know what he was doing by sitting down with LeBron and having a deep dive conversation. Just the fact that LeBron would trust him enough to be his partner, to have a sit-down basketball deep dive podcast conversation with, speaks volumes to any potential team willing to hire JJ Redick. So it is a brilliant play on his behalf. I just wonder if and when JJ becomes a head coach. I think when, not if. He's made it clear that he wants to be a coach. So I think it's a matter of when and him finding the right opportunity. Those are his words, not mine. When he becomes a coach, I just wonder how all of this will be received. Him doing this podcast with LeBron and maybe players identifying that was potentially his end to becoming a coach. Will that rub some guys the wrong way? I don't know. If it doesn't rub him the wrong way, his condescending nature, I think, surely will. And keep it with LeBron. Let me chat about Bronny really quickly. Bronny, first of all, I haven't heard Bronny talk much at all until the NBA Combine. And my takeaway in listening to Bronny speak the few times that he did, he seems like a very good kid. Like a really good kid. You can tell that he comes from a good upbringing, parents with money. He just seems, I can't say I'm being redundant, like a very, very, very good kid. And so now, of course, that aside, you got to break down his game. And I'm seeing some feedback from scouts who are just ripping his game apart. And then basketball fans rather, are saying, well, why doesn't he go back to school and play again? He didn't necessarily have a strong rookie season numbers, or strong freshman season numbers-wise. My take on all that is if he goes back to school, whether it's USC or anywhere else, and he has a season that is anyhow reminiscent to his freshman season, where if you look at the box score, he's averaging 5, 6, 7 points, 5, 6, 7 rebounds. If it's anywhere like that, and that continues to his junior year and his senior year, then the likelihood of him getting drafted continues to decline. So I say all that to say this is probably his best shot at getting drafted, him coming out as a freshman, because it leaves an element of what if. What if he develops to be a Drew Holiday like he says he sees himself, a Davion Mitchell like he sees, like he says in himself, or a Derek White? There's that what if he goes back to school and you see more of what you saw freshman year, then the cards and the odds are stacked against him. But again, I think he just seems like a really, really good kid, and so I'm wishing him the best. I'm hoping that he does get drafted. And listen, the kid say he does not. He said his dream is not to play with his father. I believe that. If I were Bronny, I would not want to play with LeBron James either. So, but of course his last name may help him get drafted and may help him get drafted to the Lakers. Anyhow, I wish him the best. And finally, let me just touch quickly on the WNBA because this is obviously the most talked about season since their inaugural season back in the late 90s. And these veteran WNBA players are not befriending or pulling any punches with Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, any of these rookies, and nor should they. If I'm a WNBA veteran and I come in, all I'm hearing is we're getting chartered flights now, we're getting all this attention because Caitlin Clark or because of Angel Reese or because this highly decorated rookie class, I would feel a way too. I think it's natural for people like Diana Taurasi to say what she said about Caitlin Clark. I don't know if it makes sense for Alyssa Thomas to, throw Angel Reese to the ground like she did. I'm not saying that, but for them to want to, for a veteran to step up their game or look at Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese and say to themselves, barbecue chicken, and play a little bit harder, that makes sense. So they have the work cut out for them. I don't think it's going to stop beyond this year. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, you name any rookie. Beyond this year, they're going to have their work cut out for them because they're going to have a bullseye on their back, I think, for the foreseeable future. But in the same breath, the success and the revival that the WNBA has received, of course, is because of these ladies. So anyhow, we'll chat soon, episode 60.